freedom, man. That's what it's all about. You've got to groove on freedom, like the good book says.
Welcome. You are listening to What on Earth is Happening. This show will discuss the topics of human consciousness, mind control, natural law, the occult, and all issues that affect the freedom of the people of Earth. What on Earth is Happening will endeavor to shine light upon the darkness of our world and to offer empowering solutions to the problems we face as humanity approaches its critical moment of choice. And now, here is your host, Mark Passio.
Welcome, one and all. You are listening to What on Earth is Happening right here on the Oracle Broadcasting Radio Network. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. The network's website, of course, oraclebroadcasting.com. This show is live every Sunday from 5 to 7 p.m. East Coast time. Today is Sunday, February 19th, 2012, and we have an information-packed show for you here today. We're going to be continuing our ongoing discussion about solutions to the problems that humanity faces. And as part of that, one of the biggest solutions we've been talking about is getting your body into a proper state of health and homeostasis. So we're going to be continuing talking about nutrition today on the show, but specifically today, I'm going to talk about raw foods and juicing. It's going to be a dual show today. We're going to have the first hour dedicated to, or maybe even a little bit more than the first hour dedicated to raw foods, and then the remainder of the show to juicing. So these are two of the things that we can take charge of and actually really get a hold of our health using our own willpower. It's something that everybody has within their capability of doing if they apply themselves. So that's coming up on the show today. I want to thank Franco Heward for being on the program last week on Present Moment Awareness. It was a great show. People should check it out in the archives. I will be returning to that topic and combining it with the other solution of mindfulness, which goes hand in hand with Present Moment Awareness on a future show. I do have a couple of quick event announcements. So I'm going to be on 3 different radio programs coming up this week. I will be on a show called Grow It, Build It, Live It. That will be on Tuesday evening from, I believe, 10 p.m. East Coast time to midnight East Coast time. I'll post more information on the show on the website about the show. I'm also going to be on the Vinnie Eastwood show on Thursday night, February 23rd from 6 to 8 p.m. Vinnie Eastwood broadcasts out of American Freedom Radio, so I'm looking forward to that one. And then on Friday, the 24th, at 10 p.m. East Coast time, I will be on Down the Rabbit Hole with Popeye of federaljack.com. So that should be a great show as well. Also, coming up at the end of this month, the last day of February, on the leap day of this leap year, February 29th, Truth, Freedom, Prosperity will be hosting their monthly documentary screening and discussion evening. This month at Media Bureau Studios on 4th and Brown in Philadelphia, we'll be showing Architects of Control, great documentary by Michael Tessarion and Henrik Palmgren. That's it. Media Bureau Studios, Wednesday, February 29th at 7:15 p.m. For more information, visit truthfreedomprosperity.org. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen.
I was born
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening here on Oracle Broadcasting. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. I'd like to send everyone up to the website to check out the images for today's show. They're, as always, posted with the show on the radio show page. Right underneath the player, you can see the numerical links listed. If you click on any one of them, it will bring up a little slideshow, and you could follow along with what I am talking about on the show today. So, image number one, what we've been talking about is solutions, and I just call this entire section the way out. It's the way out of the lower modalities of consciousness, and it's the way to the higher states of consciousness, which will ultimately result in peace, prosperity, living in harmony with natural law, and ultimately human freedom. And that's what this show is all about. Image 2 shows the grassroots solutions for real and positive change, which I have outlined over the past few weeks. We've already covered the healing of our worldview as the probably the biggest and most important solution, and it's one of the most difficult boundaries to actually get past because so many people's worldview is completely poisoned. So we talked about the change in our quality of attention, how we need to get off of poisonous forms of media and information and onto good quality information. And then in keeping with that, we started change of diet because in addition to changing our mental food, we need to change our physical food because there's so much poison in that as well. You know, it's just an unfortunate truth of the state of human affairs that we have completely polluted food supplies and processed foods with all kinds of chemicals, additives, preservatives, pesticides, you name it, artificial sweeteners, hydrogenated oils, just things that are horrific for the human health and actually create an extremely deteriorated brain in the sense of the neural connections in the gray matter of the brain and the neocortex of the telencephalon of the brain. So you've heard the old adage, you are what you eat, and it's literally true. Our brain and our bodies are completely made up of the nutrients that we take into our bodies that actually then become our cells. So the quality of the cells of our body are going to be determined upon the quality of the nutrients that we take into our body through our food. Okay? And as a result, the quality of our behavior is ultimately going to be determined by the quality of the physiology of the brain and body. It follows logically, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, the quality of our world, since it is going to be determined by the quality of the collective behaviors of the individuals in it, is ultimately going to be determined by the quality of what we do or do not put into our bodies and what we do and do not put into our minds. It really is that simple. People will insist and claim that that's reductionist thinking. No, it is not. The truth is not overly complexified. It is simple. It is elegant. It is that simple. We have to simply change the quality of what we are allowing into ourselves through an act of our own willpower. And the result will be positive change, self-betterment, higher consciousness, and ultimately more freedom in our lives and the lives of everyone else on this planet. So we started with, in the food section, understanding what we need to do to change our diet, that this is something we've said and reiterated time and again is within each one of our control still to a great extent. We have control over what we put into our mouths. So slide number 3 simply shows this solution. We need to change our diet for the better. I put up a food pyramid for people to look at the basic generalities regarding food and the categories that they fall into, what foods we should be eating every day, what foods we should be eating on a weekly basis or sparingly, and what foods we should basically be eliminating from the diet altogether, things that really aren't foods, to be quite honest. So that's in image number 4, that food pyramid, and I put it up there just as another general reference for people to take a look at. Image number 5 shows food's relationship to matter and energy, which we covered on show number 93. and showed the density, the state of matter, and the correspondence to the alchemical tradition. Because, ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake, what this is all about is physical alchemy. Okay, I did a show with Bob from Cincinnati on his great radio show called Occult Empire on the Antimatter Zone Network a few weeks ago. That's posted up in the news section of my website. And the show was all about alchemy. And this is a topic, an occult tradition that we're going to be looking into on future shows. Probably maybe as we get a little bit farther through the solution section, I'll take a break and we'll look at another occult tradition. I also want to take a look into Rosicrucianism. I've said this in the past. We're going to also delve further into other traditions that we've already looked into. So that will be coming up on future shows. But make no mistake, what we're really talking about here is a process of alchemy that is performed upon the self. It's purification. It's distillation. Okay, and this chart here on image number 5 just shows that the body has to work harder to break down the more solidified what we're putting into our bodies is. The more solidified it is, the body has to work harder to break it down. So solid food is going to require the most energy. Liquids will require much less energy, and then air, which is what we breathe, is processed extremely efficiently and with the least amount of energy. And what you will also notice that that's what we need the most. As we go higher in this chart, the rarer things are what we actually need the most. We can live only for a minute maybe without air, a couple of minutes at the most before then the brain begins to die. Okay, liquids we need even more than solid foods, but less than air. You could sustain yourself probably for about 3 or 4 days without liquid, and then you'll start to have serious health effects, and eventually you will not be able to survive. Solid food, okay, you could go for a longer time without that if you take in nutrients through liquid foods. But we're going to talk about juicing in the second part of the show today, and how this could be done on its own or as a complement to the diet. Now, I just did a 10-day juice fast with my partner, Barb. It was the first fast I have ever done. It was tremendously successful. We felt great. We both lost some weight. I didn't really need to lose too much weight. I dropped about 5 pounds on it, but I felt great the entire time. Lots of energy. And it was an exercise in willpower, which everyone, including myself, can always use. So, I wouldn't recommend, as I've said again, to be on any kind of a liquid diet constantly, but you can supplement juicing to your existing diet, and you can combine it with raw foods. And we're going to talk about raw foods in the first part of the show today, and I'm going to have specific recipes. This is going to be a recipe show, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to give specific recipes. I'm going to post these recipes with the podcast. They're not posted to the site yet, but they will be with the podcast, okay? And we're going to take people through the process of how you can do a month-long raw food diet. I've done this twice so far, month-long raw food-only diets. I've done a 10-day juice fast. And again, we should be combining raw foods and juicing with our existing diets as a supplement to our diets. We'll be right back with more on raw food and juicing after these words.
Oracle Broadcasting Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. This is What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host, Mark Passio. Today on the show, we're continuing our solutions section. We're talking about raw food and juicing and how we should add this arsenal of nutrition to all of our diets. And it's something that all of us can do. There's no excuse not to get started. We're going to talk about the equipment that's involved in eating like this. It's not that expensive. You can find organic foods in supermarkets in your area. You can grow your own in gardens if you have the land, the space to do it. Even if you live in a city, it's possible to do, okay? So you can combine foods that you grow for yourself with foods that you might find in a store or a farmer's market, and get started on the path to physical health which is completely interconnected and inseparable from mental health. Okay? These two things go hand in hand, as we've already discussed. So, image number 5 we were on the chart on food's relationship to matter and energy. I think I've said what I want to say about that in general. And a couple of weeks back, we had water purification expert Fernando Salguero on the show to talk about water purification. We got into reverse osmosis technology. We got into water distillation. It was a great show. Check that out in the archives as well. Image number 6 shows a basic reverse osmosis water filtration system that goes under your sink and provides extremely pure drinking water and water that you could use for cooking. This is almost identical to the system that I have installed in my home. So I highly recommend these. You can find them for probably as cheap as $150 if you look online for some deals. Mine was, I believe, $190 shipped to my door. Okay? So, again, these aren't that expensive. There are whole house water purification systems that run into the thousands of dollars. If you can afford that, wonderful. If not, this is the way to go. All right? We've talked about the importance of the quality of our drinking water to a great extent. So, image number 7, this is an image I put up after one of the podcasts that I did. I think it was in podcast number 93, and it was a slide just called "What's in Our Refrigerator." So this is Barb and myself's refrigerator at home a few weeks ago, and this is what it looked like. In it at the time, every ingredient, just about every single ingredient in that refrigerator at the time was organic. Okay, and I had a batch of green juice in there. I had spinach. You can see the spinach up in the upper left in a little Tupperware tub there. Kale, celery, romaine, cucumbers, parsley, bok choy, cilantro, carrots, tomatoes, radishes, turnips, beets, blueberries, grapes, apples, oranges, grapefruits, pineapple, lemon, lime, coconut, mint, squash soup, chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, flax oil, hemp oil, and for to drink, I also had some raw almond milk that I made and some raw kombucha, which I also ferment here, which we could talk about that at another time. But this is what happened to be in my refrigerator at the time of taking that image near the time that podcast was done a couple of weeks back. Here's another image in slide number 8, which shows my refrigerator last week. Okay, that's what the inside of a refrigerator should look like. And I know many people's refrigerator does not look like that. And I'll tell you something for damn sure is mine did not always look like that. Okay, so this is something I know is a change that some people can do sooner than others. Some people will do it gradually. But if your health isn't in the right place, again, your thinking is not going to be in the right place, and your willpower is not going to be in the right place. Okay? So if you would have saw what my diet was like, even only about 6 to 7 years ago, it was horrific. Okay? Extreme amounts of processed foods, extreme amounts of meat, extreme amounts of dairy, and just extreme amounts of food, period. Okay, now that looks like a whole lot of food and a whole lot of perishables to people, which they'll immediately say. But when you're juicing and when you're eating a lot of raw foods, and there's 2 people doing that basic diet, that's not really that much, and that's not that much money. Some people would think that will cost a ton of money for the inside of your refrigerator to look like that. That's probably under $200 worth of food, what's in there right now, what you're seeing in that image. On an entire 10-day juice fast, we spent under $300 for 2 people to do it. So about $150 per person, okay? over a 10-day period, that comes down to $15 a day, which means about each meal was $5. If we broke it down into 4 meals, it was even less than that, because I believe we juiced about 4 times a day. Okay, so today on the show, we're going to get into raw foods. And, I say about 60% to 70% of our diet should probably be raw foods as opposed to processed or cooked foods. We want to try to get it at least up to 60%. 50 is great. That would be a good start, half and half. But if we could do it up to 60%, I guarantee you'll see a dramatic change in your health, in the quality of the way you feel, in your energy level, and just in all-around well-being. All right? So we're going to talk a little bit about the equipment that you will need to effectively do a raw food diet. Okay, again, this is something you can complement your existing diet with, slowly make a transition, or if you want to jump right in, do a raw food diet for 2 weeks. 14 days, nothing but raw, uncooked foods. Okay? And we'll talk about how we can make that palatable, enjoyable, and you can have fun preparing some of these recipes. And if you have more than one person to do this with, that always helps. Okay? It helps with the willpower aspect. You encourage each other. You keep each other going with it. And it builds a synergistic energy to do this with another person. So that always helps as well. The image on slide number 9 shows the juicer that I own, okay? And we'll be getting into juicing in the second part of the show. This is the Breville Juice and Blend. Now, I got this recently, a couple of weeks back. I used to have a Jack LaLanne Juice Man juicer, and it was kind of dated. It was aging. I wanted to upgrade to something a little bit more professional and easier to take apart and clean. So I looked for this Breville juicer. It was a little out of the price range that I wanted to spend. If you buy this new, you'll have to pay about $450 for it. And yeah, that is pretty expensive. Okay, I do think it's worth that price tag because of what it can do for your health. That's a small investment to make if you're looking at a long-term health investment. I went on Craigslist and found this for sale on Craigslist, barely used, just very lightly used, for $175. It was kept in great condition with all the original materials and packaging, and I picked it up at that price. So you can get lucky and you can find deals on things like this. We'll be right back after these words, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere. All right, folks, we're back. This is What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host, Mark Passio, talking about raw foods and juicing on the show today as part of our solutions section. Changing our diet, getting onto the higher nutrient density foods, purer foods, unadulterated foods. So that's why organic is the way to go. You saw an image right from inside my refrigerator. People have asked me many times, what's your diet like? What do you eat? I'm sharing what my diet largely is like to you. Now, will Barb and I still go out and eat something? Will I still order a pizza from time to time? Sure. I'm not 100% total extreme when it comes to this. Some people are. Some people like that. But at the same time, I think I'm way farther into this than where most people are at with their diets. Okay? I am a vegetarian. I don't eat meat products. I will eat dairy still. I'll eat some cheese. I'll eat, eggs. I'll, sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes drink dairy milk. I generally drink almond milk as a substitute for dairy milk. We're going to talk about how to make almond milk today on the show. So image number 9, we were looking at the juicer I own. Now, while this is a more expensive juicer because it has a blender component too, you can get juicers for much cheaper than this. Even a Breville juicer, which is a pretty good juicer brand, you can get at a cheaper price. So there's a huge price range that you could find that which will fit your budget, okay? I'm going to give you 5 examples. There's a Breville compact juice fountain, it's called, okay? It's only $99.95 new, and you could find it even cheaper than that used if you're not opposed to buying a used juicer from someone, as long as they took good care of it, okay? But $99.95 new. And I'm in no way endorsing any of these companies. I'm just telling you, here's the prices you could find some decent juicers at, okay? I'm telling you what I use, and I'm telling you what's out there. That's all. Black & Decker makes a 400-watt fruit and vegetable juice extractor, okay? $29.88. $30 for a juicer. Everyone could afford that. Yes, it's not as powerful, as something like a 1,000-watt Breville, but if you're on a budget, it's better than nothing. Okay, it will still get the job done. All right, it might not be as efficient as a higher end one, but hey, if you're really well-to-do, not many of us are these days, but if you have the money to invest, go for a Norwalk juicer. Even just take a look at the Norwalk to see what it can do. It's very impressive, but also extremely expensive. Over $2,000 for one of those. So, there's a price range that would fit everyone's budget. Of course, that's probably the Rolls Royce of juicers, the Norwalk, because it's so efficient, and just extracts more juice than probably any other juicer out there. Hamilton Beach makes a product called the Big Mouth Pro, $70. Okay. They also make something called the Big Mouth Juice Extractor, $60. Right. There's something called the Big Boss Juicer, $49. So again, I'm just showing you, you can go on Amazon, you can go on Google Shopping, wherever you want to go, price grabber. Okay. Any site, eBay, type in juicer, look at what is out there, what is available. You can go on Craigslist like I did. That's how I just got a great juicer at a very affordable price. I'm thankful that the people would be willing to sell it at that price. I'm not really sure why they wouldn't want to continue to use a great juicer like that, but I'm going to take the opportunity and put it to great use, which I'm doing right now. I'm drinking a glass of my mean green juice as we speak. I'm going to give that recipe for what I made for what I'm drinking right now later on the show. Okay, so tons of juicers out there. You also need a blender, especially for a raw food diet. A blender is indispensable. A food processor also. Okay, now I don't use a large food processor. I go with this Magic Bullet item, which is kind of popular these days. That's listed there in image number 10, and they have a whole line of those, a series of those. You could check out these bullet type food processors. There's tons of them out there too. I have a Magic Bullet. It works great. I like it. I make great peanut butter with it as well. We could talk about nut butter recipes later in the show. So let's get into some of the recipes, okay? Let's talk about what raw food will do for the human body. One, you're taking in higher quality foods if you buy organic, okay? I wouldn't even recommend doing a raw food diet unless you're going to do it organic, okay? If you can't find an item organic, okay, substitute a conventional item. Like I got just about everything organic when I went shopping last week. They didn't have organic grapes. They only had conventional grapes, I guess, this time of the year. Usually I can get them organic. I bought the conventional ones, okay? I'm not going to totally not get something, if I want to add it to my diet, if I want it for juicing, just because they didn't happen to have it organic where I shopped, okay? Some people will say, absolutely not. I'm only going to get the organic stuff. Some people will make, more exceptions. I'll make a couple of exceptions when I go shopping, but if they have it organic, that's how I'm going to get it. All right. So what you're doing is you're eliminating as much toxins and free radicals in the food that you're taking in as possible, while through not cooking the food on a raw diet, you are keeping alive all of the enzymes that the body requires. And what that is going to do is it's going to take in the most nutrient density into the body. As I said a few weeks ago, the formula for eating right is so simple, it's almost silly how simple it is. It's maximize the nutrient intake, minimize the toxin intake. That's it. That's the equation, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, it is that simple. Okay? So you want to drink a lot of pure drinking water during a raw diet as well. Okay? Because that's what's going to move and carry the nutrients through the cells of the body, through the digestive tract, and through all of the cells of the body. So one of the first things you're going to definitely want to do on a raw food diet for any length of time, however long you're going to be doing it. Some people make this their lifestyle. Okay, I'm not a total raw foodist. I will probably do 1 or 2 months out of the year all raw foods, nothing else but raw food. But then I'll incorporate raw food into my diet through the year. So I did 2 months of 100% raw food for 2 months, not straight, but 2 separate months, 30 days straight, okay, 2 months of 2011. And I will probably return to doing that probably in the spring, 1 month in the spring and 1 month in the fall of this year, okay? So we're going to get into recipes for raw food eating, okay? One of the things that's going to make one of the bulk staples of this diet is salads, fresh organic salads. And you could put whatever you like in them as long as it contains raw, organic, vegan food. There's no dairy in a raw food diet, okay? So there are cheese substitutes, there are milk substitutes, and they're actually very, very good. They're very palatable, very tasty, okay? You have to experiment with them. I'm going to give you some resources, a couple of web resources to look up information on raw foods. But if you type raw food recipes right into any search engine, guaranteed you're going to come back with so many recipes you won't know where to begin. Okay, there's tons of information out there on this. Okay, so knowing that salad is going to be one of your main staples of the diet during a raw food recipe, and people should be eating salads on a daily basis anyway, a good salad dressing is something you're going to want to research. A good raw salad dressing made with all raw ingredients. Okay? So I'm going to start with this recipe for raw vegan ranch salad dressing. And people will say, well, how could you make ranch dressing that's raw? Well, believe me, it can be done. And when you hear what's in the recipe, it's all extremely good tasting stuff. And when you combine this and make this raw dressing, it's nice and thick, it's creamy, it tastes incredible on any salad that you happen to put it on. It's not that high in fat, okay? And it's raw. So we'll start with that one after this next break, and then we're going to go through about 12 or 13 other raw food recipes. And then later in the show, we'll get into juicing. We'll be right back after these words, ladies and gentlemen.
Gotta keep my cool, make 'em think I'm made of stone.
Okay, everyone, we're back. Let's start to get into some of these raw food recipes, starting with a complement to a nice big raw salad. And that is raw vegan ranch dressing, okay? Now, some people don't like thicker dressings. Personally, I do. There are many other raw salad dressing recipes out there, Okay, this is one that I found that I liked. And, you don't want to go nuts with this on the salad. You want to put it on lightly to, give to complement the taste of the salad that you're eating. Okay, so here's the recipe and how to make it. You start with some soaked cashews. Okay, so you do 1.5 cups of cashews and soak them in water. Now, I have found that if you have a powerful blender, you don't even really need to soak the ingredients that are by default they tell you to soak. My blender, the horsepower is phenomenal on it. Okay, it's got a great turbine, so I don't usually have to soak nuts when they're called for in a recipe. I could just add the water and it will blend them just fine. Okay, if your blender isn't that powerful, or if you're using a food processor or something, then yeah, you need to soak them. Okay, so 1.5 cups of soaked cashews. Okay, a cup of water, filtered water. Okay, 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, 1/3 of a cup of apple cider vinegar, raw apple cider vinegar, 1/3 of a cup of cold pressed extra virgin olive oil. And this is small amounts, as you can see. It's not over the top with the oil and vinegar. Okay, 3 tablespoons of raw agave nectar. Agave is a low glycemic sweetener that puts a bit of sweetness into the salad dressing. If you don't want it sweet at all, don't add the agave. Okay? And when I say a little bit of sweetness, that's what I mean. This isn't going to make it super sweet. Okay? 2 cloves, whole cloves of garlic. 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. 3 teaspoons of onion powder. 1 teaspoon of dill or some freshly chopped organic dill. 1 teaspoon of sea salt, and you don't want to use refined white salt. If you're going to use any salt at all in any of these recipes, use sea salt, Himalayan sea salt. Okay, it's like pink, it has some other hues in it, but that has decent mineral content and isn't refined like the refined white table salt. So you want to use salt sparingly anyway. But in any of these recipes, especially when it comes to a raw diet, if you're going to use salt at all, definitely go with the Himalayan sea salt. Okay? So that was 1 tablespoon of sea salt, 1/2 of a teaspoon of basil. And you could also add fresh basil if you want, substitute fresh basil. Now, you're going to put all of those ingredients into a blender and you're going to blend it very well. Turn it up to your high setting, liquefy setting, okay? You may need to add some more water if the consistency is too thick, okay? So you could add water to take it to your desired consistency. After blending, in addition, you could add in some very finely minced parsley, about 1/4 cup or less of finely minced parsley, and you could also add another 1/2 of a teaspoon of very finely minced dill. Okay, that will add a nice flavor to the already blended dressing. And when you taste this on top of a good, fresh, organic raw salad, I guarantee you will go nuts. Okay, this recipe, as will all of these other ones, be up on the site, okay, with this podcast. Now, soup and salad go together, but on a raw diet, you can't heat anything, okay? It's no cooked foods on a raw diet. Now, again, if you're not doing a raw diet and you just want to make a soup like this, you could do it and then heat it up, okay? But we're talking about going onto a raw diet for a time, or incorporating more raw foods into the lifestyle because all the enzymes are intact and the highest nutrient density is there when the food is raw. Okay, that's why juicing is so good. It's uncooked, it's unprocessed, it's not pasteurized. Okay, so with a soup, a raw soup will, of course, be served cold, okay? And this next recipe is a great complement to a salad that you may be eating, okay? So that makes a great meal, a raw salad and a raw soup, okay? So this is raw tomato basil soup, all right? You start with 4 large chopped tomatoes, okay? This is all going to go into a blender as well. The blender is going to be your main friend on a raw food diet because so much processing in the way of chopping food needs to be done on a raw food diet to create different taste profiles and to create different combinations of foods. You know, you could do a raw food diet where you just eat the food the way it is. You know, chop it up into a salad or just eat it plain. Grab an apple and eat it. Grab an orange and eat it. Grab a banana and eat it, okay? So these are basically recipes which require some blending of the foods or chopping and mixing of the foods to create, you know, some kind of variation so that you don't get bored with just, you know, raw, completely the way they are out of nature foods, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. If you can do that and not want any other combinations, wonderful, do it, go for it. I'm giving some recipes like this to help transition people onto this diet and keep it interesting. That's the main key to keep in mind here, okay? So raw tomato basil soup, 4 large tomatoes chopped, 1/4 of an onion chopped, 1/4 of a cup of cold pressed extra virgin olive oil, 1 tablespoon of dried oregano, 1 tablespoon of dried basil. You could also substitute fresh basil in there or fresh oregano, okay? A pinch of salt, a pinch of pepper. Sea salt again, organic crushed pepper. You could also add fresh pepper in there if you want, okay? Excuse me. 2 cups of filtered water. And now, here's the secret ingredient to add a little bit of thickness to this is 1/2 of a cup of Brazil nut milk or raw almond milk, okay? And I'm going to give the recipe for raw almond milk coming up. You put all of those ingredients into a blender, you blend it up, make it nice and smooth, pour that into a bowl, and that's a great cold raw tomato basil soup to go with your raw salad. You do just those 2 things, you're going to keep it interesting eating a raw food diet, okay? One thing I want to say about a raw food diet is you will need to spend some time with food preparation if you want to keep it interesting. So you'll need to chop up your salads. You need to prepare all of this stuff, okay? You need to take some time, blend some things up in your blender with some of these recipes. But if you take the time to do it, you're going to understand that why that's a spiritual currency, as I've been saying over and over. We say we spend our time. Well, if you spend your time doing things like this, you're going to get so much in return for that payment of time that you're going to wonder how you lived your life without doing these things. Because the way you're going to feel and the clarity of your thoughts, the clarity of your intuition, everything is going to all come together. Okay? So that's a soup and salad combination. Okay? You can make your salad however you want. Make a raw dressing. This is just one example of a raw dressing. Add the soup with it, and you have a great raw meal right there. Okay? Now, for people who generally eat meat or used to eat meat and like it or used to like it, some people on a raw diet may miss the consistency of meat. Now, I'll sometimes eat a meat substitute like a Boca burger or something like that. I don't try to overdo anything like that because eating a lot of soy I try is probably not good for you either. So I try to make sure it's non-GMO. Okay? So this is a raw meat recipe substitute, which sounds like a contradiction in terms, but it's not. We'll get into it on the other side. Stay with us, folks. Welcome back, everyone. This is What on Earth is Happening, talking today about raw food recipes and juicing as a pathway to health, improving the body and ultimately improving the consciousness. So let's get right back into the recipes because we have a lot more of them to go through. Let me give the call-in number right now because I want people to call in with any questions or comments. I'll be taking calls in the second hour. Actually, we're at the top of the second hour. I'll be taking calls later in this hour. Okay, the call-in number, 866-841-1065. Once again, the call-in number for the show, 866-841-1065. Boy, that first hour certainly flew. So let's get right back into the recipes. I was getting ready to give people a meat substitute recipe, okay, that resembles the texture and flavor of turkey salad, okay, but it's all raw, vegan, and organic, all right? This is called raw vegan, quote, turkey salad, okay? 1 cup of walnuts, and if your blender isn't powerful, soak them first, okay? A couple of ribs of celery, 1 teaspoon of fresh thyme, 1 tablespoon of fresh sage, finely chopped, 1 spring onion, finely chopped, 2 tablespoons of parsley, chopped, okay? 1 to 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, depending on your taste, 2 teaspoons of tamari, ground. Add salt and pepper to taste. Blend in a blender. Now again, if your blender isn't really powerful, or doesn't have a good motor in it, all right, you want to take it slow with this and add a little bit of ingredients at a time. My blender, you could put anything into and it will go through it. I mean, it will just slice and dice its way through just about anything. You can't kill it. So if you have a really good one, just load all of those things right in the blender, blend it on high, and add water as you're blending to reach the desired consistency. Some people will like this really thick, okay, and it gives you it's like a ground up turkey salad, okay? And you got to try it because you won't even believe it. It's great. I didn't believe it when I tasted it, that it approximates. Of course, it's not going to be exactly the same as real turkey salad. Okay, I'd be lying to you if I told you it was. But it approximates that, and eating it fills you up nicely, and it gives you that texture that maybe you're mentally or psychologically looking for. When it comes to, I've been eating a raw food diet and I want something that resembles something more substantial or solid, okay? This is a way to get that idea into your system, into your mind while you're eating so that you have the strength, the willpower to stay on the diet more, okay? And I guarantee you do this raw diet, you'll knock out type 2 diabetes. That's one of the ways to just knock it out through diet. And this is something that your medical doctor will often not even tell you. Type 2 diabetes is beatable this way, okay? So I'm going to post a lot of resources, links with this podcast. I'm going to post some whole books on health and nutrition and juicing and raw food diets. Lots of resources are going to go up with this podcast. So you'll have to excuse me if it doesn't go up like immediately after the show, because I'm going to be preparing resources to post on the site and posting links and whatnot. So, give me a little bit of leeway on that for this podcast. On the other side, we're going to get into raw guacamole dip, raw almond milk, raw fruit smoothies, raw green smoothies, raw bread, raw nut butters, trail mix, a dessert, and more. Stay with us. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. During the break, I snapped a photo on my webcam of me drinking one of my juice concoctions, and I'll post that with the podcast. People should get a kick out of that. I'm going to be giving the recipe of the juice I'm drinking right now in a little bit. Let's get back into the recipes for raw foods so then we can transition over to juicing for the second part of the show. Okay, so we just finished with the raw vegan turkey salad. Raw guacamole dip. Here we go. I don't know who doesn't like guacamole. I think it's great. It's a great complement to a vegetable snack like some celery or some carrots. You could dip them right in there. And this is great tasting guacamole dip. 3 ripe avocados, 1 large tomato, 1/4 of a white onion, 3/4 of a cup of fresh cilantro. Cut the leaves off. Okay, you want to cut the stems off. Use the cilantro leaves. Okay, chop and finely mix together. You could use a magic bullet to do the processing. You want to make sure you don't over process it with the bullet because it will liquefy it. Okay, so you want to use the press and release technique that they demonstrate in the manual and in some of their videos. Okay, and afterward you could add about 1.5 teaspoons of lemon juice and some sea salt to taste, and that will make an incredible raw guacamole dip. Now, raw almond milk. This is a great substitute for dairy milk. I drink almond milk all the time. It's high in antioxidants, and it tastes great. If I eat any cereal, any organic cereals, I use almond milk. Okay, if I add a little bit of milk to oatmeal, I'll use almond milk. Okay, so you start with 1 cup of raw organic almonds. Now, sometimes it can be difficult to find raw almonds. They are available. You can find them depending on what store you look. Whole Foods in my area will often sell raw almonds. Okay, so you just want to make sure they're not roasted almonds. Okay, you want to get organic unroasted almonds. Okay, soaked if necessary. Again, we talked about when to soak. Add 4 to 5 cups of water in a blender. Okay, 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. You could add 1/8 of a cup of raw agave nectar for a little bit of sweetness, okay, which will also combine well in something that is cold as opposed to having to go in something that's hot to dissolve like sugar, okay? And then blend it on high, okay? After that blends, let it settle for a little bit, take the lid of the blender off, strain it through a mesh strainer, a mesh kitchen strainer, okay, into another container. I strain into a glass milk bottle that raw milk comes in. And that's it. That's all. That's your raw almond milk. And it is delicious, okay? Now, you could do things with the raw almond milk. One of them is you can make raw fruit smoothies. Just like you might make a smoothie with some regular dairy milk, well, you can make a raw smoothie with almond milk. Okay, here's a general recipe for raw fruit smoothies. Start with 2 bananas, add some berries. You could add strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, whatever you like. Okay, add some raw nuts, so almonds, pecans, cashews, peanuts, etc. Okay, as much as you want. Add some raw almond milk, some ice, blend it up in your blender. Use the ice crush mode to crush up that ice if you have a good blender with an ice crush mode. And that is an awesome fruit smoothie that will give you high energy, okay? Yes, there's natural sugars in it, but again, these are sugars that are found in nature, and the waters that are distilled by nature in these high-quality fruits, nothing could be better for you. So that's a great way to get, nice treat. It's pretty sweet tasting. It's totally healthy for you. And I don't know anybody that doesn't like a good fruit smoothie. So that's that recipe. Now, for a more nutritious smoothie, you would want to make a raw green smoothie. Okay, so once again, you're going to start with some water and ice. Okay, add a banana or two, depending on your taste. Add a ton of spinach in the blender. Add some kale. Put an apple chopped up. Okay, a pear chopped up. Right, and you might need to blend this, and then add a little bit of ingredients. Blend it. Add some more. Okay. Use common sense when it comes to working with the blender, of course. You could add some berries in there, blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries. Goji berries, okay, are excellent for a smoothie like this, okay? Then add some hemp seeds, some superfoods, hemp seed, chia seeds, flax seeds. Blend it all up together and just drink it down just like that. Put the remainder in the fridge. Okay, that'll keep for a couple of days. You don't want to keep it too long after that. Okay, but that's an incredible high nutrient density and high antioxidant and high alkalinity raw green smoothie. I make these all the time. You cannot go wrong with these. Okay. Now, people will say, well, what do you do after you make the almond milk after you're straining all of that out into another glass container, and you have all of this almond meal, as they call it, left over. This is the very finely blended, the finely ground almonds, chopped up real fine, that, most of the nutrient density went into the almond milk and the antioxidants, okay, through the infusion of the almonds into the water during the blending process. What do you do with that leftover bulk material that is called almond meal? Well, you could actually make a raw almond bread from it, okay? This is a recipe for raw almond banana bread, and it's absolutely delicious. You can make sandwiches on this kind of bread. You can make I made raw peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on this kind of bread, and they're incredible. Okay, so start with 4 bananas, a half a cup of flax seeds, a half a cup of almond meal, a half a cup of raw agave nectar, a half a cup of almond milk. You could cut back on the raw agave nectar if you don't like it too sweet. It also kind of acts as a binder for all the other ingredients, okay? A half a cup of raw almond milk, 2 tablespoons of sesame seeds, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, a half of a teaspoon of nutmeg. Blend all of these together very well in a mixing bowl. If you have a baking mixer, that will work really well to blend this up in a mixing bowl. Okay, pour it out into a pan, or you could also even pour it into a bread pan. You don't want to pour too high with that into one of those, though. But if you have a kind of a flat baking pan, pour it out into that. Dehydrate it at 95 degrees in a dehydrator if you have one, or you could do it in an oven if your oven can go down to a very low setting, under 100 degrees, no more than 100 degrees. Because other than that, you'll start to kill the enzymes in the living food. You want to dehydrate it at about 95 degrees, and you will have an incredible, you'll have to do that for... Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening here on Oracle Broadcasting. Today on the show, we're talking about raw foods and juicing. We're going to get right back into the raw food recipes because I have a few more of them and I want to get into the juicing section. So here we go. Raw peanut butter, okay? Now, you can find raw peanuts. Again, it can be difficult. They can't be roasted, okay? So you want to look for raw, unroasted peanuts, okay? You want to chop up a bunch of these in a blender, okay? And then pour that peanut powder, I guess you could call it, peanut meal, whatever you want to call it. Pour it into a bowl so you could scoop it with a spoon, okay? And you're going to take 5 tablespoons of raw peanuts, very finely chopped peanuts. I throw them in a blender and just chop them up until it's like, as small as they get. and it works really well. Again, it does in my blender anyway. Okay? I don't want to contribute to destroying anyone's blender, so know your equipment before you start doing this. Okay? Make sure you have something that can handle something like that. All right? 5 tablespoons of raw peanuts into the small Magic Bullet container, the small Magic Bullet cup. Okay, I make raw peanut butter in the Magic Bullet food processor. Okay, if you don't have one of those, I recommend one or something similar to it because they're only $40. I mean, that's what I paid for mine. You could probably find them cheaper than that. It's a nice quality product. I have made incredible peanut butter. I mean, peanut butter I make in that will knock your socks off. I'm proud to say it. Okay, I like peanut butter. It's a great source of protein, as is green leafy vegetables are great sources of protein as well. So you're going to get a lot of protein on this diet. But peanut butter is a good source of protein on a raw diet too. Okay, so I'm not saying go nuts with it, but complement the diet with it. Okay, you could do a peanut butter spoon if you don't want to spread it on anything else. I made raw peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, as I said, with that raw almond banana bread, and I'm going to give a recipe for raw strawberry jam in a few moments. So 5 tablespoons of raw peanuts, very finely chopped, into the Magic Bullet, the small Magic Bullet cup. Okay, 1 teaspoon of peanut oil, a half a teaspoon of raw sugar. Okay, raw organic cane sugar. Okay, you could also use a little bit of agave nectar if you want to substitute that for raw sugar, or you can not put sugar in at all. Okay, it's up to you. That part's up to you. That's optional. Also, the salt. The salt is optional. I use a quarter of a teaspoon of sea salt, a little bit. Okay, process all of that in the Magic Bullet with the flat blade attachment. Okay, not the chopping blade, the flat spinning blade. Okay, and process that until it is of peanut butter consistency, then scoop it out, put it in a ball mason jar or something like that. That's what I use to store it. And just keep repeating that process of those amounts in the small Magic Bullet container until you have enough peanut butter that you're happy with. And I'm telling you, I make this for myself. I make it for family members, and it is incredible. It is probably one of the best recipes that I personally have gotten into making on raw foods. Okay. Now, if you're not on the raw food, you use regular roasted peanuts, and now we're really talking incredible peanut butter. Okay. So you could do it with the raw peanuts, and it tastes great. You could do it with the regular organic roasted peanuts, and it's better than any conventional peanut butter that you'll buy in a store to do this. To fill up a standard peanut butter sized jar will take you about an hour, maybe a little bit more, but it is well worth it, and you'll have peanut butter for a couple of weeks. Okay, so that's the raw peanut butter. Raw almond butter and pecan butter can be made the same way, and you don't even need any additional ingredients. Just add about 5 or 6 tablespoons of raw, finely chopped almonds into the Magic Bullet. Blend until it's a nut butter consistency. Put it out into a ball jar. Just keep doing that until you have the desired amount. That's raw almond butter. Okay, and you got to use raw almonds for that. Some people will blanch the almonds. I don't even bother to do that. I just leave them whole and right into the blender, blend them up, and then right out into the Magic Bullet. Okay? Same thing with pecans. Blend them up so that they're finely chopped, process them in the Magic Bullet with the flat blade, and you have incredible pecan butter. If you want to add a little bit of raw sugar to the pecan butter, you could do that to taste. And these nut butters come out absolutely incredible. They're great snacks on their own, or, spread on some of the raw bread. Okay. There's also some raw crackers that you could find in stores that are dehydrated crackers, and the enzymes are still intact within the living foods. So those are available at some health food stores or Whole Foods markets, etc. All right. So raw strawberry jam. Start with a pound of fresh organic strawberries, 3 pitted dates for a little bit of thickness. Okay. 1 tablespoon of psyllium husk. Okay, or you could do soaked chia seeds in lieu of the psyllium husk. That will act as a binder and add a little bit of thickness to the jam. Blend that in a blender until they're smooth, and that's incredible raw strawberry jam, okay, to complement the nut butters that you just made. All right. Now, you can make a great raw trail mix just with whole organic raw nuts and berries. Add in a bowl together almonds, cashews, peanuts, walnuts, macadamia nuts, pecans, raisins, dried cranberries, dried blueberries, dried cherries, dried goji berries. And if you want a little bit of flavor of chocolate, of course, processed chocolate isn't available on the raw food diet, isn't allowable on the raw food diet, but you could add some raw cacao nibs, which is raw organic chocolate, unprocessed. And that gives a little bit of a hint of chocolate to the trail mix. And this is an incredible trail mix. People have come over my house and just like devoured this trail mix. It's just a great tasting combination. And anybody can make that very easily and relatively inexpensively. Raw, now here's a dessert, okay? For a little bit of sweetness, everybody has a little bit of a sweet tooth. I don't know of anybody that doesn't like chocolate, okay? You can make raw cacao coconut dessert treats, okay? So what this is like it's basically a ball of chocolate and coconut, okay, to put it simply. Some people don't like coconut. There's probably some things you could substitute, like peanuts in lieu of the coconut. Or you could add peanuts and raisins to it to give it a little bit more of a solid consistency. I've done that in the past, and it's come out great, okay? So 1.5 cups of shredded coconut, raw coconut, unprocessed, okay? You could also just get that from an actual coconut. Drain the water out, scoop the flesh out, let it dehydrate a little bit, and you have great shredded coconut, okay? Three quarters of a cup of agave nectar, 3/4 of a cup of raw cacao powder. That's raw chocolate, okay? And it comes in powdered bags of powdered cacao. It's excellent. If you're not on the raw diet, you can make a great raw hot chocolate with it. It's non-processed. It's not cocoa, which is processed. This is raw chocolate, okay? So you're going to add 3/4 of a cup of raw cacao powder, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1/4 of a cup of coconut oil, raw coconut oil, okay? And then 1/4 of a cup of chia seeds as a binder and a thickener. And that's optional if you don't want the chia seeds. Chia seeds are awesome. They're a superfood. You blend that together in a mixer, a mixing bowl with a baking mixer, and then freeze it. Okay, put it in the freezer. All right, let it set up a little bit, let it freeze a little bit, take it out, and then you could form it into small balls, okay, and put it right back in the freezer. And you'll have a great go-to treat when you have a sweet tooth attack to, go into the freezer and get a raw chocolate coconut treat. You could also add raisins or some nuts in there to taste. So I have 2 other quick raw food recipes, and then the last half an hour will be dedicated to juicing. We might even pick this up on the next show. We'll see what happens after this break. We'll be right back, folks. All right, folks, 2 more quick raw food recipes. Actually, I'm not even going to go through the entire recipe. I'll post them on the site because these are pretty complex and have lots of steps to them. And this is for people who want to go deeper into the variations of the types of food and the mixing that you could do and the kind of style and art form it can become. I'm not so good at it. I've actually made one of these recipes that I'm going to give you. I don't think it probably came out as good as the guy who designed this recipe, can make it. But and I'm going to give his website as well. I'm going to give a few people's website out in the next half hour. So raw lasagna and raw pizza. Okay, this is something that I grew up with. I'm Italian. I'm an Italian from South Philadelphia. Okay, so I ate my share of lasagna and pizza in my life. And on a raw food diet, you might want to revisit those things. It'll be in a little bit different form, but you can make these things so that they come out tasting so good that it is comparable to a lasagna. It is comparable to a slice of pizza. It's not the same thing as obviously as a slice of pizza, but it's has some of the a better nutrient quality than any pizza dough, white flour pizza dough that you'll ever eat, and it's very satisfying and filling. So both of these recipes are by a gentleman who calls himself the Raw Chef. His name is Russell James. You could check out his website at therawchef.com, Russell James. And I'm going to post the recipes of the raw lasagna and the raw pizza topped with pesto and caramelized onion on the website. I'll give the links on the website, and I'll actually post the recipes. All of these recipes that I've given today will be posted with the podcast. So when the podcast goes up, again, it's going to take me a little bit to put it up this time. Maybe I'll have it up by tomorrow. I'll try to do it by the end of the night, but I'm going to have to amass this information. I have it just listed as kind of like raw notes here that I'm reading from, so I'll have to organize it a little bit better, and then I'll post them all up as PDF documents. Okay, so maybe all in one PDF document on different pages. I'll have each recipe on a different page, something like that. So look for that with the podcast. Let's get into juicing, but before we do that, I'm going to tell you who my main juicing information came from. Of course, Jack LaLanne championed juicing. I had a Jack LaLanne juicer for years, and I've until very recently I just got a Breville. As I said, I got a Breville juice and blend combo. But LaLanne is one of the guys I really listened to about juicing back in my youth. I saw a lot of the commercials he did, a lot of the videos he put together, and his information is rock solid when it comes to juicing. His juicers are also great. He has since passed, but good juicers of the LaLanne series of Juice Man juicers. Another person I like his information is Matt Monarch. Some of the stuff that he has on his website's a little expensive for my taste, but he's got some good information on the raw food lifestyle, okay? Somebody who probably helped my health more than any other individual is Kevin Trudeau. And a lot of people will not like him because they'll say, oh, he's about money. Kevin Trudeau knows what he's talking about. His information has come from the areas of the occult. He has worked in similar capacities with occultists, probably at higher levels than I have. I know that Kevin Trudeau knows what he's talking about. His information is coming from firsthand sources, and his book, Natural Cures, everyone should read and understand the information that's in that book. Okay? It's close to a 600-pager. So about 560, 575 pages, something like that. Read it. Power your way through it. Understand what's being said in that book. You'll do yourself a favor. Okay? That book helped change my life about the way I thought about food. And so I'm indebted to Kevin Trudeau for putting that information out into the world. He's got a great radio show, too, at ktradio.com. I highly recommend checking out his work if you're not familiar with it. Okay? So I'm unapologetic about that. I know some people don't like him. They say, oh, he was into some, shady things. I think the government wants him done in because he's putting information about food out to people and helping them to get off the pharmaceutical dependency that they've been living under, the pharmaceutical tyranny that they've been living under, that's doing nothing but destroying human health, not bettering it. So that's what I have to say on Kevin Trudeau. And Dan McDonald, I cannot recommend highly enough if you want good information on juicing. This guy is great. He's high energy. I love his passion. I love his energy. His website is regenerateyourlife.org. Regenerateyourlife.org. Check out his work. Check out his videos on YouTube. I'm going to give you some of his recipes right now for juicing. Okay? Now, all I'm going to say about juicing is don't be timid. Get in there. Do it. Don't take little tiny amounts. Get the vegetables, get the fruits, shove them into the juicer. That's all that's required, ladies and gentlemen. It's a power straight ahead approach that you don't need to be dainty or timid about. Just get in there, put the stuff through the juicer, drink the juice. That's it. Real simple, okay? Don't be timid about it. Just get in there and do it. As I've said before, there's nothing to it but to do it. That's the mantra that you just need to put in your mind. Get in there and do it, okay? So when I'm giving these recipes, it's like take a bunch of these things, shove them into the juicer, let it process them, get the juice. What I do is I process them into the container that comes with the juicer. If you don't have one, you could use a nice glass Pyrex mixing, pouring container, okay? And then what I'll do is when that fills up, I'll pour into like a large pot, okay? And then I'll blend all the juice that I'm going to make up if I'm going to make a large batch, okay? And I'll blend it up in that pot. Then I'll strain it, okay? I'll pour it back into the Pyrex container, okay? And the measuring cup, and I will glass, okay? And then I will strain it through a mesh strainer again into glass containers, like, very good, washed out, cleaned raw milk jars, bottles, or some raw, quart milk bottles too. If you'll also have like juice containers, like old, like Tang used to come in, something like that, like with a plastic lid on top that has a pourer mouth, okay? You could use one of those. You could use lemonade pitchers, cover it with some saran wrap. That's what I'll store my juice in. Or you could store in mason jars, are excellent for storing juice because you could actually fill them up to the top so you can get a little air, there's no air above it, and then screw the mason lid on and it will keep any air out. And that they'll store for a few days like that. If you need to go beyond a few days with juice, with unpasteurized juice, you need to freeze it, okay? And freezing is something you could also do to enhance your juicing because you could actually make pops. You can get little popsicle containers, pour juice into there, pour fruit juices into there, and make fruit pops, fresh, organic, raw juice pops, and have a go-to snack that's made of all pure organic juice in your freezer whenever you want to treat like that, okay? So that's something that we do here. Barb has been a fan of that. And I have lots of juice pops in my freezer right now, okay? So kids will love that too, all right? So Dan McDonald, Regenerate Your Life, he has a great DVD video called Green Juice Recipes for Detox and Regeneration. I highly recommend it, okay? You could check it out on his site. And here's the recipes he gave. These are inexpensive recipes that you could start out with to experiment with green juicing. I'm going to give some fruit juice recipes, not necessarily recipes, just, explain what you could do with fruit juicing. And then I'm going to top this section off with what I call Mark's 21 gun mean green juice, which I've been drinking throughout the show today. And I'm going to show you a picture of what it looks like on the webcam. I'll post that as image number 11 after the show. Okay. So let's start with Dan McDonald's juice recipes. The first is carrots and celery. Okay. That's it. Real simple. Carrots and celery. This starts getting you used to the green mixed in with the carrot because carrot is kind of a sweet taste. Most people will like carrot juice. You add celery into it and that will give you a nice combination. Grapefruit, parsley, and ginger. This will be a little bit of a tart one, okay? But the flavor combination is great and it's a total detox juice. Grapefruit, parsley, and ginger. The parsley will make it a nice deep green, okay? The next, wheatgrass, which you will need an auger juicer for, which is another kind of juicer, cucumber and coconut. Wheatgrass, cucumber. Welcome back, everyone. This is the last segment for this edition of What on Earth is Happening. Before I get back into the green juice recipes and then a couple of my own, one of my own green juice recipes, I want to also throw a shout out to another individual who really helped me change the way I think about food, diet, and nutrition in general, and that's Deepak Chopra. Deepak Chopra, before he became a purveyor of spiritual information, I believe was a gastroenterologist, if I'm not mistaken, involved in Western medicine until he realized the shortcomings of it. And he really got deep into Ayurvedic medicine and Ayurvedic health techniques. And some of his books on nutrition that contain information on nutrition really helped me to turn my diet and my nutritional practices around. So Deepak Chopra is another individual people should definitely consider the advice of when it comes to food. Okay, so I also want to say thanks to Bob from Cincinnati, because in regard to Ayurvedic medicine, okay, and alchemy, he sent me a nice quote that I did not know this information, so that was really nice to learn something new regarding alchemy and the Eastern Indian practice of Ayurveda. Okay, he sent a quote, and here it is. Quote, East Indian medicine, known as Ayurveda, means the science of life. Okay, that's what it actually means. It is, Ayurveda is a life science, the science of long life. Okay. Unique to Ayurveda is the process of bodily purification known as panchakarma, okay? Panchakarma. And the process of physical and mental rejuvenation known as rasayana. Rasayana in Ayurvedic medicine is known as, it is the process of physical and mental rejuvenation. Rasayana is a Sanskrit word with the literal meaning juice path, the path of juice. Okay, in Sanskrit, ayana or rasa is the word for juice, and ayana is the word for path. So it is the juice path. They call rasayana the elixir of life. Okay, and it is used to describe chemistry and alchemy. All right, so very interesting quote. The process of physical and mental rejuvenation called rasayana in Ayurvedic medicine, and it is literally translates to the juice path or the juice way. And that is what this is, ladies and gentlemen. This is alchemy. That is what you are performing when you transform your diet and ratchet it up to a higher level of purity. You are performing alchemy upon the self. So with that in mind, let's get back to the juice recipes, and hopefully we'll have enough time to take a couple of callers. All right. The last recipe from Dan McDonald that I had spoke about was wheatgrass, which requires an auger juicer. Okay. We don't have time to get into that, but it's a different form of juicer. If you want to juice wheatgrass, you'll need an auger juicer. Cucumber and coconut. Okay. Great combination. Another combination, watercress and lemon. This is purely for detox. You will have a sour and astringent taste in this one. So this will be one of the more difficult as far as drinkability, but incredible as far as detox is concerned. Okay, more drinkable versions of these green juices: celery, cucumber, spinach, cilantro, and Jerusalem artichoke. A great combination. I have used these recipes myself, and they're incredible. Another combination: celery, cucumber, bok choy, cilantro, lemon, garlic, tomato, and jalapeno for a little bit of spice to it. Another great combination. What he calls the lemon ginger blast: an apple, lemon, ginger, celery, parsley, cilantro, fennel, and a habanero pepper to add a little bit of spice. Okay? A little bit hotter than even a jalapeno, a lot hotter actually. Okay? And finally, apple, pear, celery, lettuce, and lemon. And I believe he used that as like a tonic or a relaxing recipe. All right, so there are 8 great green juice recipes. I'll be posting them with the podcast as well, and I highly recommend checking out Dan McDonald's videos. For single fruit juice recipes, for single fruit juices, Apple. I just made a great batch of apple juice that's in my fridge right now. Orange. I also have raw organic orange juice in my refrigerator. Pineapple juice. Coconut water. Just break apart a young coconut, strain the water out of it, drink it down. Okay? Grape. Watermelon. Okay, you could make berry juices. You can mix berry and watermelon. A great combination I've come across where I make freeze pops with it. Watermelon, strawberry, blueberry, raspberry, blackberry. Juice those, pour into a fruit pop container, put it in the freezer. It's a great snack. Okay? Now, finally, the last recipe. I call this is what I've been drinking on the show. I'll post an image of me drinking it. I call this my 21 gun mean green juice made with 21 components. Okay, here it is. Celery, and these are all the green components. Then I'll tell you what the non-green vegetables included are, and then the fruits, and then there is a root. Okay, so celery, cucumber, kale, romaine hearts, spinach, bok choy, green chard, broccoli, parsley, cilantro, watercress, and fennel. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 components that are green. And that's the life force energy. That's the energy of Earth itself. All right, now the non-green components, to add a little bit more water content, a little bit of sweetness and drinkability, carrots, which are high in beta carotene and other essential nutrients, tomato, and parsnips, okay? High water, all right? Carrot, tomato, parsnips. Then the fruits that I'll add in for a little bit of sweetness and drinkability, apples, pears, grapes, coconut water, and a little bit of lemon juice, just a little. And then a little bit of ginger, just a touch of ginger. I'll mix this up into a pot, pour it out into glass containers, store it in the or mason jars, store it in the refrigerator for a couple of days. I'll have juice over a 3-day period. Any more than that, you don't want to keep it in the fridge, I would say. Okay, you want to finish what you're making within that amount of time. Preferably, the closer to making it that you drink it, the better. All right, but you can store it in the refrigerator for a couple of days. After that, if you're not going to use it within that time frame, freeze it. Freezing it will keep the nutrient density, and you could thaw it in the refrigerator and then drink it down. But don't keep unpasteurized juice in the fridge for any more than a couple of days. Okay? And again, just get in there. Don't be timid. Do it. Buy the vegetables, grab them, put them through the juicer, drink the juice. That's all there is to juicing. Anybody that tells you that there's anything else to juicing is lying to you or trying to overcomplicate things so that you get discouraged. That's all there is to juicing, ladies and gentlemen. And it is the path of alchemy. Okay, and it's the path to longer life, and it's the path to health, and it's the path to physical and mental rejuvenation and purification. So with that having been said, let's go to the phones. Hopefully we have a couple of callers. Yes, we do on the line. Here we go. Caller from the 541 area code. You're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome.
Yeah, Mark, we've talked before. I just want to give a caveat to what you've been saying.
Sure.
I challenge you to use common sense and the trivium, and that would be to search out radioactive uptake studies that would indicate if you juice, it should not be done more than a couple of times every couple of months, and should not be done more than say 3 days at a length, because you're actually taking away from the body. If you study the human situation, you'll find that we're made entirely of fats and proteins, and the radioactive uptake studies will show you that you get almost no fats and proteins when you're doing a juicing kind or a raw food diet. I do believe in the raw food, but the raw foods, as any hunter-gatherer society will tell you, should be fats and proteins. Those are the sources of our integrity as a ideal human. And if you're like upset about eating raw meat, raw fish, raw dairy products, or whatever, you can prepare them with acidity, just like your stomach does, to safeguard yourself. That's how you are safeguarded. And you could use, as in with your nuts, peanuts, raw peanuts may have a mold. You can use hydrogen peroxide food grade to actually protect yourself in that perspective. But the bottom line is, we're hunter-gatherers. we need raw proteins and fats, which you cannot get from any kind of carbohydrate agricultural product.
I think it is possible to get some of those fats and proteins and in higher quantities also from some of the raw fruits and vegetables that grow on the earth, particularly some of the vegetable and legume content. So we can talk about that later on a further show. We're out of time for today, folks. We'll see you next week on What on Earth is Happening. Stick around. Chris Everard is up next.